Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome to another review. Today I'm looking at a new diesel from Bachmann. A little under 2 years ago, Bachmann released a brand new all-singing, all-dancing Class 47, which is a significant loco as one of the UK's original diesels, and as such I really quite fancied one. However, I was massively put off and quite disheartened by what I thought was a ridiculous price. The RRP for just the DCC ready version, that is no DCC decoder or sound or anything like that included, was £239.95, which was just far too much for me to justify spending. So I decided to do what I've done quite a bit recently with new Bachmann locos, or some of them, and that is to just do nothing, wait, keep my fingers crossed that the price will come down. And just recently, less than 2 years on, I got my wish, because I was able to pick up this all new tooled Class 47 from Bachmann from the model centre for £143.98, which is a 40% discount from the RRP, which is really good. And honestly, I would recommend the same to you. If a new loco comes out and you quite fancy it, if the price is ridiculous and you're not desperate to own it immediately, just wait, because if the models don't sell, they will come down in price, because nobody wants to hold this stuff in stock until it gets old and doesn't work and whatever. So yeah, that's what I would do. It's paid off a couple of times recently, and in this case I saved around £100 on the RRP, and with that money I could buy another loco. I could get a tank engine for less than £100. Well worth doing. So this loco should be quite interesting, because at its RRP it's some £70 more expensive than your typical Acura scale loco. And I always mention Acura scale because they're kind of the benchmark for high quality, reasonable cost models in the industry. However, at the price I paid, the reduced price, it is £26 less than your typical Acura scale locomotive. So it really will be very interesting to see how this compares with something from Acura scale in terms of quality, features and value. So let's get this out and let's take a look. Well, I have to say this may or may not have been a complete rip-off at its original price, but my first impressions have been very positive. The box, for instance, is very heavy feeling, so I've got high hopes. We've got a decent, weighty, chunky loco in the box. And looking through the front window, it certainly looks like a quality loco. We've clearly got some great livery application on there, which I cannot wait to see up close. So let's get started. Let me show you the end of the box. So the product code for my example is 35-418. It is a Class 47/0, so very much an original Class 47, running number 47004. It is in the BR Rail Freight Construction livery, and the DCC socket in here is one of the Plux 22 ones, so you do need to bear that in mind. I think most of Bachmann's latest locos, or at least diesels, have had that socket, so bear that in mind. Let me show you the back of the box then. So here's a brief history on the Class 47. Well, I say it's brief. There's a couple of large paragraphs there, so pause and read that if you'd like to. For now though, I'm going to get this out. I have really no idea what features this loco has. I read all about it when it first came out, but that's a couple of years ago. I've forgotten basically everything. So actually this ought to be quite a nice experience to rediscover all this. So out it comes. There it is. It's quite a sizable loco, isn't it, this one? Yeah, looking good, I must say. Let's rescue it from the box and let's have a look at the paperwork. So this is the Class 47 diesel locomotive owner's information. We've got a bit of information here. So it does have a 5-pole motor with a twin shaft motor. That's fairly standard these days. We already know what decoder socket it's got. It does have dual speakers factory fitted, so obviously that's a great feature. All-wheel pickup and rotating fans only on the sound fitted deluxe version. Yep, you heard that right. The £239.95 model does not even come with all of the features included. How ridiculous is that? Anyway, it's got accessories and they're all labelled, as you can see: air pipes, vacuum pipes, dummy screw links, We'll have a look at all of this in the accessories bag in just a second. Even more accessories, stuff that you can fit to the bogies, additional pipe work, so much to add to this thing. So if you want to take on the challenge, you could add even more detail. Lubrication looks fairly standard. Lighting feature switches, so this is just for analog DC operation to give you some control that you would ordinarily get just through your DCC controller or whatever. So switch 1 is number 1 end directional lights, and switch 2 is number 2 end directional lights. Okay, fair enough. DCC decoder fitting, so this is what I'm going to need. It looks like the body comes off when you loosen 6 screws by the looks of it. And there we have the decoder socket inside. So that's all fair enough. And then a bit about warranty and spare parts and such. Okay, so let's get this out and let's have a look at the accessories bag. And I can already see some accessories that please me very, very much. Let's have a look. So we've actually got 2 accessories bags. The first contains these etched plates. So you've got some etched metal British Railways arrows, and then these very decorative looking badges. What a high quality touch that is. I like that a lot. Expensive model with expensive features. That's a good start. Let's have a look at the other accessories pack. We've got quite a lot in here. Look at all of this stuff. So you've got some plows to fit to the front. That's a really cool feature. I always love that as an option. There are some proper screw link couplings included. Again, that is really good to see. Premium feature here, that's good. And lots of different painted pipe work and such, which is all painted, like I say. So with that then, I think it is just about time that we had a look at this loco. So the first thing, what's the finish and the livery like on first glance? Here goes. Ooh, yeah. Well, it's a Bachmann loco, so surprise, surprise, it's got a very high quality finish, which looks wonderful. Quite a bit of decoration even on the roof, what with the painted fans and then the different coloured panels. Yeah, it looks like a complex loco even from above. Right, is it heavy? Yes, you could say that. Yes, it does feel pretty darn heavy, which is great. And here it is, Bachmann's new Class 47. I apologise that it's taken this long to get to the review, but I'm glad I did because I saved obviously about £100, which is great. And here it is, the Class 47. Yeah, it looks really, really marvellous. To be honest, it's the livery more than the detail, which is standing out as particularly good looking on this. Although, to be fair, the detail obviously does look good as well. So, we're going to have a much closer look at this in just a second. First of all, though, let's have a little bit of information on the Class 47 in real life. The British Rail Class 47 was a very numerous class of diesel-electric locomotives introduced in 1962. 512 examples were built in total over a period of 6 years, with the intention to use them to help replace all steam locomotives with diesels or electrics, which British Rail wanted to achieve by 1968. The first batch was ordered on the 28th of February 1961, and these early examples were fitted with steam heating equipment, allowing them to work with coaches designed for steam locomotives. This equipment would eventually be phased out of the class to make way for more modern systems, though. The Class 47s remained in service for an enormous number of years. The first withdrawals didn't begin until the late 1980s, and these were some of the earliest built. Today, 76 Class 47s still exist, many of which are under preservation with mainline running certificates. 33 Class 47s were converted into Class 57s, and get this, astonishingly, these are still in service today. So there it is up close and personal for you, the new Bachmann Class 47, and as you can tell, this is a highly detailed and really, really great looking model, and we'll get to all of its details in just a second. I have to say though, I am very, very glad I didn't pay the full price or anything close to it, because for me, this model is just not worth that money. I think Bachmann have really taken the P with this one, in fact, because the model is relatively simple in many ways, and yet that RRP of £239.95 completely fails to reflect that. For instance, the loco outwardly is a relatively simple one. The side of the body, for instance, requires very few extra details such as etched grills and other separate parts. Obviously, that's fair enough. What are Bachmann going to do? Invent parts just to fit them on for the sake of it? No, of course not. But the fact that this is a relatively simple loco outwardly should have saved on the cost a little bit. Also, there is so much detail for the user to fit themselves. This must also have reduced the production costs of this loco. Again, that's absolutely fine. I don't have a problem with there being loads of stuff for the user to fit because, of course, that gives you extra customizability, and some of those parts may prevent the loco from running properly, so you fit them at your own discretion. But still, that should have saved money. The stuff that's really unacceptable is that this model has been downgraded in order to make a deluxe version of this model, which is insanely more expensive, more appealing. For example, the new Class 47 from Bachmann has moving working fans built into the design, but those have not been fitted to this one. You have to pay extra to get those. Really? For £239.95, it's missing features. Also, they designed a way to tint the glazing in the cabs to make them look more realistic, but again, you have to pay an awful lot more to get that feature. I mean, seriously, does it really cost that much to make the windscreens look tinted that they can't produce that for £239.95? It's just absolutely insane, isn't it? Do not pay up and above £200 for this thing. It feels really good to have waited and gotten this cheaper, and on principle, I think that is something we should be doing. The weight isn't even that impressive. It's perfectly heavy, again, don't get me wrong. It weighs 598 grams, which is more than adequate, but that is less than a Hornby Class 56, which was considerably cheaper, and it's also less than all of the Acura scale locos I've looked at so far, which again have all been cheaper. So it's not worth the money. We've established that. I think it's a complete rip-off and Bachmann are taking the mick. However, it's a beautiful loco that does have some areas of complexity, and let's talk about that now. So the decoration is perfectly good, and this is something I should make very clear because I've been quite critical. The quality of the model is very high indeed, and this really shines through in the decoration. The joins between the different colours are incredibly sharp on both the roof and the different shades of grey on the body. The printed details are incredibly crisp and good looking. I'll show you some of these now. Lots of little printed details. Even where we have etched details to fit, they've still been printed onto the body. So the loco looks complete straight out of the box. The roof is actually very complex. Not that many separately fitted details. The grills and such appear to be just a part of the moulding, but you've got these separately painted sections up on top, which also have the hinges and such picked out, and they do look wonderful. You get a great effect of relief just with those parts picked out, which is really, really cool. And while we're up on the roof, we might as well take a look at some of these other details. Obviously, we do have some etched grills on the loco above the non-working fans. And if you blow the fans, you can see that those are free to turn. It's just a shame that they won't work when the loco runs. Let's take a look at some of the other detail then. So the bogies look great. There's lots and lots of detail on these bogies, which has all been very, very finely moulded. And in places, you've got separate parts here as well. So yeah, the bogies look absolutely excellent. In terms of the side of the loco, the doors have been nicely picked out, and you can see even the door handles here are painted. And then the handrails either side of the door are also made of metal, which is a high quality feature. Like I say, the side of the loco body is very simple, although the moulding looks really good and convincing. And then you've got some glazed windows on the side here, which afford you a view into the engine room, which appears to have been detailed. Yeah, I can see some white painted details behind there, which is really good. So it certainly has one or two flashy features, that's for sure. The underframe is also very impressive. Look at this. You've got the little boxes underneath, which are all wired in with separately fitted and separately painted wiring. Loads of detail down here, which all looks excellent. And the ends of the model are well presented too. You've got the glazing, which is just plain, well, whatever. You've got the aerials, which are very fine separately fitted parts, so you have to be very careful of those. Wipers on the windscreens, more separately fitted handrails which appear to be wire, and the lights themselves are very, very impressive. They've got that sort of ridged effect on the lenses that the real things did, and that's been really quite well replicated here in model form, which is awesome. Separately fitted lamp brackets and a very bare looking buffer beam. Yeah, these do look quite bare out of the box. If you're after that realistic experience, you're going to have no option but to fit a lot of those details from the accessories bag, because they do look quite bare at the moment. We do, however, have metal buffers which are sprung. Yeah, thank goodness for that. And out of the box, all couplings are fitted, and these are not kinematic, they're fitted directly to the bogies, but they don't stick out too much, and they don't look too conspicuous, I would say. Right, let's talk about the cabs. The cabs are not hugely impressive. There's quite a bit of moulded detail in the control area and such, but none of this is picked out. The back wall of the cab, though, is much better. There's turning wheels on those, and also some printing on the back wall. So all in all, it's a good looking cab. I believe these locos do have cab lights, so at least when they turn on, there will actually be something to illuminate, unlike certain locos from the Haulage manufacturer that I'm not going to mention. But yeah, I think that is pretty much it. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this model. It's well decorated, it's high quality, and the detail is, I would say, pretty much all you can ask for. There's just no need for it to cost what it did, given how relatively low the complexity of this particular model is compared with others which were more complex, I think, and cheaper. I know I mention this every time, but a Curoscale Class 92, a lot more features on that thing than this for less money. Anyway, no complaints from me because I paid what I consider to be the right price. 40% off, or £143.98. It's not a bargain or anything. That, in my opinion, is what this loco is worth. And it feels good to have waited and kept my £100 there. Anyway, let's get this down onto the track. Let's look at the mechanism. I'm expecting it to be high quality, and the last few Bachmann diesels I've looked at certainly were high quality, so I'm expecting to get my wish with that. And of course, we're going to see how this performs. Again, this will have to be a truly faultless, high torque, high quality performer too. So let's get started. So there she is, the beautiful Class 47 down onto the track. I've already filmed the initial performance test and the loco is fully running, so I'll share all of the details about performance with you in just a second. After that though, I went and took a look at the mechanism of this loco, and I'm going to show that to you now. So from the outside of the loco, you can't really see anything. All the pickups, bearings, all completely hidden away. So to see this stuff, I'm going to have to take the bogies apart. And as you can see, these bogies are not just held together with clips. They also have screws as well as the clips, which is fantastic. Obviously, if those clips fail, the bogies will still stay together thanks to the screws, and the loco will not be useless. Built-in redundancy, I like that a lot. Removing the base reveals that the chassis for the bogie are die-cast. They're not just plastic like Haulage ones usually are. These are proper metal chassis, which is awesome, and they've got bearings on them as well. So each driving axle has proper bearings fitted to it, which is a great quality feature, and every axle of course is driven as well. Removing the axles reveals wiper pickups on every single wheel, so you've got 12 wheel pickup on this loco, every single wheel, very, very good indeed. Body removal again is achieved via undoing screws, not wrestling with clips, which is a really pleasant change. I like that a lot. And this reveals the die-cast chassis with quite a lot of features on it. The cab lights are connected with wires though, which is a little bit annoying. It's not too bad because there are plugs, so if you really want to get the body completely off, you can just undo those. But I feel like the instructions should have really warned about this, because those wires are easy to damage, particularly if you don't know they're there. The diagrams show the wires, but I feel they should have been verbally mentioned. Anyway, you've got the Plux DCC decoder socket there, nice easy access, lots of LEDs as you can see on both ends, so we've got a full lighting package. You've got the dual speakers, you've got the smaller sort of higher frequency speaker on the top, and then a big bass speaker underneath, which looks really good. I'd love to hear one of these in person actually. Here's a closer look at the engine room detail, which also, as you can see up top, has an LED to illuminate it, although this does not work, at least not on analog. So to get this to work, you're going to need a DCC fitted or one of the Dulux models. So we can add that to the growing list of things you miss out on if you don't get one of these chipped or Dulux. And then the gauge is pretty good at 14.2 to 14.3 millimeters back to back. That's just comfortably below the standard. Right, let me show you how the performance test went. Right, let's find out whether this works then. So the last few Bachmann locos I've looked at least the last few new ones, have been great runners, very, very smooth, good crawlers, etc., but not that great in terms of torque. So I'm going to be looking at this one very carefully to see if this is the same in that regard. It does seem a little bit lighter than some of the other locos I've looked at though, so maybe the torque won't be so much of an issue, but that doesn't matter right now. What I need to know first is whether this is going to work. So let's give it some juice and let's see. Forwards. Yep, it's working, and it took off very, very smoothly. Oh yeah, look at that. Gosh, I tell you what, it's quite the speedy loco. That was 50% speed, right there. That's 50. Oh, it's quick. So yeah, I wonder what that will mean for the torque and the crawl. Yeah, shall we see how fast this can go? Let's try. It's not running yet, so I don't want to do this for long. Yeah, it's got a good range of speed to it, I will say that. Okay. Very smooth and quiet too, which is great. In terms of the lighting, here on analog, we've got red tail lights when the loco reverses. And then in forwards direction, yep, you've got the headlights, which illuminate quite nicely on both ends. Now, are the cab lights working on analog? No. So it might be that that is just a DCC only feature. Let me just try switching those switches. No, switching the switches just literally cuts off the lights at either end. So that's what I thought from the instructions, but I thought I'd better try it just to be on the safe side, because the wording of the instructions didn't make it ever so clear. But yeah, no cab lights on analog. So yeah, paying for a feature there that we're not actually using, although they're cutting out features that we could have used on analog, which is odd. Anyway, before I run this in, let's give this a little crawl test, just see how this gets on at the slow speeds. So again, not run this in, I will run this in properly before I draw any conclusions on the performance. But here's how it runs straight out of the box. I'm easing it up very gently. Ooh, started. A little more. Yeah, it's inching forwards very, very slowly there, which is quite impressive given how relatively speedy the performance at 50 was. So yeah, it's a pretty good crawl. Not the smoothest in the world, but it's not running yet, so I'll have to let it do that. Okay, accelerate smoothly? Sure. Very smoothly, great. All right, let's have a little look at the initial torque then. So fingers in front of the buffers, 50% speed. Yeah, no torque there. Spinning its wheels very, very slowly. If I speed it up even more, yeah, then they really start to go at about 75. So yeah, apparently still not wonderful on torque. So I assume this has got a similar or possibly the same motor than the 37 and the 90 that I looked at. Anyway, let's see how it gets on around the track. 50% speed, let's run this in. Yeah, I must say it really is a lovely runner, very smooth. Slowing down considerably around the curves though. So yeah, it's running just like those other Bachmann locos were. So I think that's a theme really with new Bachmann locos, not great on torque. Obviously it's not the end of the world, you can speed them up, you can chip them I guess, which might improve the issue. But I have to say there are lots of other locos I have that perform better around curves and have a more powerful motor in them that doesn't slow down under load like this one does. So yeah, it's not quite what you'd expect for sort of over £200. But as far as I'm concerned, yeah, the performance is lovely. The loco looks excellent. It sounds good as it runs, really nice and quiet, healthy sounding thing. Yeah, overall, really, really pleased with this thing. So I'll let this run in. We'll see if the torque and performance improves at all as it runs in. That's certainly a possibility. It's not really happened with the other Bachmann locos I've looked at recently, but you know, you have to give every loco the same chance. So I'll be back shortly. See you in a moment. Okay folks, I am back, and admittedly that did not go well. Some of it I think is the loco's fault, some of it is not. At the slower speeds, which I did to film the opening sequence for the video, it slows down quite chronically on the curves, really poor torque. The other thing I noticed is that just over the second radius curves, the loco would derail every single time. And when I saw that, I thought, oh God, here we go, another issue to investigate. But no, I don't think it's the loco's fault. It's been extremely hot up here in the loft, and I assume the track has just warped due to the heat. So I've adjusted that track slightly. It's still happening occasionally, but most of the time now it's okay. I've not gone soft though. After the weather gets cooler, if this loco continues derailing and others don't, I will come back and reduce the score, because I don't want to be seen as a softie, but I genuinely don't think it's the loco's fault. Anyway, on the straight track, away from the curves and the gradients, it does seem to be a beautiful runner and hauler, as you can see. Nice and quiet, real smooth. Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous, and the lights are a good quality light as well. Nice colour temperatures, nice and bright as well, even on analog, which is good. Let's see what the crawl's like now that this is fully running. Here we go. I think we can go a bit slower than that. So yeah, it's a tiny bit coggy, but I do think that it is geared a little bit fast, because this is full speed. Look at that. Why does it need to do that? That looks way too fast. I think if it had been geared down a little bit, then more of that motor speed could have been converted to torque, which would have produced a better running loco. But there's not a lot wrong with this crawl. I mean, this is slow enough for you to do most things realistically. So yeah, I don't think it's an issue at all really, and it does accelerate smoothly, which is good. So yeah, can't fault that really. Decent enough performance. Let's have a look and see if the torque is any better. I don't think so, based on its performance around the curves, but let's see. Up to 50. Yeah, so it's slowly able to turn its wheels, but not much. And then it swiftly accelerates after I move my finger away. So yeah, it seems to be performing about the same as Bachmann's other new locos. Not a fan of the low torque, and not every loco performs like this. I've got plenty with a lot more torque, even from Bachmann themselves from years gone by. So not keen on the motors particularly, assuming it is the motors. Not 100% sure about that, but I think it is. And as a result, the pulling power was not as amazing as you might expect, but it's certainly not bad. So this came in at 0.78 newtons, which is quite a bit less than quite a lot of other locos I've got, including the Haulage Class 35, which is obviously a much smaller loco than this. So yeah, it could have done with being a touch heavier, really, given its size, but then again, there's a lot of features in this loco which take up valuable space. Should be able to haul around 44 coaches on straight and level track, although at that kind of load the wheels will be doing what you saw when I put my finger there, so probably not very good for it, so I wouldn't recommend that. So I've put just a relatively small mixed freight train together with a few roughly era appropriate wagons. Let's go and couple to them and see what the couplings are actually like. They look good, let's see if they function. Let's see how gentle and controlled I can be. Yeah, and the answer is reasonably. Yeah, that was pretty good. Have we coupled there? Yeah, we sure have. Okay, right. Well, with a load, let's try it. The Bachmann 47. Here we go. Let's try and keep it smooth. All right, we'll go a bit slower this time. Speed 40. I don't think you really want freight any faster than that. In fact, it could be a bit too fast. All right, well, we'll leave that to it. On the middle line, I've got another Coco, and that's today's theme. And I've got two duplicate Cocos out there on the layout today. So if you can spot that one, please let me know in the comments. Hang on, one of the wagons has come off. Anyway, yeah, I've been testing this loco on the same track because it's a similar sized Coco loco with a similar weight. This one's not derailing, so might not be entirely the track's fault, but I can't rule it out. Anyway, there we go, with some large open wagons. And then on the inside line, we have a diesel hydraulic loco from the West, which was the sort of competing technology against diesel electric. I guess diesel electric ultimately won, but there you go. I thought that would be an interesting thing to include. Right, let's see how the 47's getting on. So here she goes, looking quite fast into the curve, but soon that changes. Look at that, it slows right down. And, you know, I'm not going to say this is a slightly faulty model or whatever, because, frankly, every new Bachmann loco that I've tried over the last year or two has been this way, and the old ones aren't. So, yeah, torque not ever so impressive, but apart from that, it's a lovely, lovely runner. It looks incredible. The level of detail obviously does it a lot of credit, and ultimately they have done a great job of capturing the 47, in my opinion. There's a lot of Lemon Class 47s out there. I mean, Hornby have got their Railroad Plus one, which dates back goodness knows how many years. And obviously that is not a patch on this. But then again, on RRP it's like double the price, so you would certainly expect to see a few upgrades, wouldn't you? But nevertheless, it's good to see that they are here. So that is the Bachmann 47. I don't think it's worth the money. No, I think it is too expensive for what you get. At least that is true at the full price, or 10 to 15% down, which you typically get at the retailers. I think for the price I paid though, just less than 150 quid, that is the right price. Because at the end of the day, it's a high-spec loco. It does have a lot of features, particularly if you chip it, and you get even more. It's well put together, it's nicely detailed, well designed. Looking online, people seem to be happy with its realism, so apparently it's quite accurate. I'm not in a position to comment on that really, but that's what people say. So overall, not very many complaints. A beautiful loco and a good performer too, if not outstanding. Let's have some ratings then for the new, pretty much new, last couple of years anyway, Bachmann Class 47. The level of detail is really, really good on this loco. You've got the full lighting suite, you've got a great level of decoration and livery, all of that looks really good. Nice finish on it too. Sprung buffers, proper screw-link couplings included, and a pretty detailed cab as well. I have knocked it down 1 star though, because there's a lot of features that you don't get on this loco, either because you haven't got it DCC fitted or because you didn't buy the deluxe version. I think at this price that's unacceptable. So you've got no moving fans, no tinted windscreens, and no cab lighting or engine room lighting, so it has to lose a star for that for me. Performance is 4 star, really good smooth runner, nice and quiet, a joy to run really. Poor torque on the curves though, so it loses a point. Doesn't lose any more points for its derailments, because I suspect they will go away when I see some cooler weather. Only time will tell if that's true. If it turns out not to be true, I'll knock it down another star for that. Pulling power then, 44 coaches or 0.78 newtons. That's a little bit more than Bachmann's Class 37, but it is less than a Haulage Class 35, and all of the Acura scale diesels / electrics that I've looked at so far have been more powerful than this. And the Hatton's Class 66 and that kind of thing is much, much more powerful than this. So yeah, slightly poor torque in the mechanism, but I would say the pulling power is pretty much adequate. The mechanism though, I cannot fault. You've got metal chassis, not just plastic ones, all-wheel drive, all-wheel pickup, screws, not clips, holding the whole thing together, which is really good. It's got a 5-pole motor with flywheels on it. Couldn't get eyes on that, but I believe them because that's what they say. And it's got a nice modern DCC socket as well. So 5-star on mechanism, no way to fault it. Similarly, the quality is very high as well. Expertly put together as usual from Bachmann, with no visible glue or anything like that. Top quality livery, lots of die cast on it, including the bogie chassis, which is a really great feature, and a fair bit of metal in the chassis as well. Alright, perhaps not as much as on some, but still enough to make this a decent quality loco. Value for money then, I think the RRP is ridiculous for this, given how basic it is without all of the extras. £239.95, for me that would be 1.5 star. The price I paid though, while not a bargain, is a lot more like it. At £143.98, I would have given that 4 star. So I've split the difference and given it 3, perhaps a little bit generous on value, but it is a high spec loco and I do want to reflect that. Overall then, that is 8.20 out of 10, or a grade of B, and let me tell you, if the value for money was right, this would be a 5-star A-grade locomotive for sure. But they got a little bit greedy with this, and perhaps a little bit stingy on the features they held back with this. So B it is. Into the logbook, 6th place above the Bachmann Class 59 and below the Hornby K1. Yeah, overall, for the right price, this is a loco I can highly recommend. Well folks, thank you so much for tuning in for yet another review. The Bachmann Class 47 is one that's been on my radar now for a good number of months, even years. So I'm very glad to have finally been able to get one and find out what all the fuss is about. And sure enough, it is a very, very beautiful loco, finished off to an incredibly high standard, which is awesome to see, but not that surprising, because with Bachmann that is usually the case. So I hope you enjoyed seeing it. Thank you again for watching, and I'll catch you very, very soon with another video. Alright, cheers folks, you take care.